Hello and welcome. I'm Martin Groschwald, CEO of Konzepthaus. What you're about to see and hear is one of 12 panel talks from our Mobility Design Conference 2025 at the Munich Motor Show, where we brought together leading voices from design, technology, and mobility to explore the future of our industry. In this session, you'll hear fresh perspectives and valuable insights straight from our stage. Let's dive in.
All right, so welcome everyone to the CMF track today at the Konzepthaus Design Mobility Conference. My name is Laura Burstein. I am a design journalist based in the US, in LA, and we have a wonderful panel here. So this is a digital CMF process. So this is an open discussion between designers, modelers, and visualization artists. And I think it's really important. It's become clear that interdepartmental communication among different roles in the design organizations are more important than ever in terms of understanding each other's perspectives and needs. And so we are going to have this discussion here to sort of get some different perspectives and backgrounds and hopefully take everyone forward into their studios with a new appreciation for ways we can improve these processes. So just some introduction to our panelists. We have Julie Schwieder, who is the Assistant Chief Designer at Toyota Europe Design Development, and Mark Gutjahr, who is a Global Head of Design at BASF Coatings, which everyone, of course, knows, famous paint supplier. Pierre, I'm sorry, okay, good. Director Growth 3D and Immersive at Adobe. And then Quirin Friedl, Expert Visualization at NEO. So thank you to all of our panelists. We appreciate you being here because each of you is working in a different role and seeing the issue from a different side. So we really appreciate your time and efforts to be here. So if we can just the little summary is basically that digitalization is transforming every corner of design, including CMF, which is also a little bit of a dichotomy, right? Because CMF has always been such a very traditional, tactile human element. But this panel dives into kind of this future of the CMF process, exploring how these digital tools will be reshaping these processes, as well as some ideas for education and roles in positive and challenging ways. So I would love to just kind of go down the line and start each of you with a little bit on your background, and maybe if you can talk about one or two notable projects or companies that you have worked for that's a favorite or something recent. Julie?
Yeah, so I'm Julie Schwieder. So you will see with my lovely French accent that I'm coming from France. And I graduate actually in design school, which was more like a fashion and furniture the last century. So that will also explain you a little bit where I am now. And I grew up with Photoshop, so it means that I'm a totally like more a dinosaur in terms of CMF style. So that's why I'm here to talk about digital. I think it's a good place. My background is I work just out of my study for Renault and after for Nissan, but a very short time. I mainly made all my career in Toyota, in satellite studio in southwest France, and also I had the chance to spend time also on the headquarters in nearby Nagoya. So I mainly work on production at the beginning of my times, but also advance also at the same time, and now I'm more focusing only on advance. So the last big project that I work on are the two Yaris, which, to be honest, I'm very proud because it's the biggest production in France now, which is kind of cool. And and the next will come soon. Please come to Tokyo next month. There will be a huge event there, and cool cars are coming there. So that's it for my side.
Yeah, I'm Mark. I'm also a designer. I studied in Cologne, which was like also last century, like digital already, like more than 20 years ago. It went very digital. And then I started to work like in different fields of design, from product to furniture to exhibition, and started actually like 20 years ago coming into the field of color. and worked for BSF in projects, and then started more and more projects with the company, and became actually then the design lead for Europe and later on for the global design team, which is a small team, very agile. And we work globally with all car manufacturers, so for car paint. So we have a very broad view actually on that, very agile in working methods. So actually 20 years ago, we started to digitize color, and it didn't work. So that was too early. So we had tools that didn't work. We had like a whole setup that didn't actually match the criteria for making a physical product digital. And then we restarted 10 years ago actually to develop again like systems to establish a digital work process. And we're rolling this out currently with some of our clients. We work very digital in the development process, still with physical samples. And we actually do more and more for trust building, also to understand what digitization means in the process, and that you can trust actually the materials that we deliver in the end to the production side as well. So we took this whole journey from physical samples and digitizing it, and we're still in this transition phase.
So you've seen a lot of changes then over the course of your career, and as you as well, Julie, in terms of this digitalization. So Pierre, then you can tell us all about your amazing tools in Adobe.
So first thing first, Photoshop is still a great piece of software. It is still used very much today. Yeah, on my end, Pierre, I've been starting. I've always been kind of an hybrid. I've been first doing an engineering study and then industrial design study at Strat next to Paris back then. And then I've been having the chance to join the Citroën design studio for the Sea Cactus almost 20 years ago for Frankfurt 2007. And then joining 3D through the Soul system first, working on Gutjahr, another tool that is still used today and have many years. And afterwards, joining a very small team in France doing a piece of software called Substance 3D that was acquired by Adobe 6 years ago. And making a lot of sense for us to join Adobe, as many times our software was mentioned as being the Photoshop of 3D, especially Substance Painter. Maybe a project that I have in mind that I was very happy to be able to deliver back then is we did a virtual show car with Takumi Yamamoto, who's been a designer at Citroën first, and he's been doing one of the first show cars, the Citroën GT for Gran Turismo. And with Substance being the leading solution in the video game industry, it was great to close the loop and do a virtual show car with Takumi. And what was interesting is Takumi was coming from automotive and going to video games. And our piece of software were going from video game to the industry. So I found the idea pretty interesting, and the final project is really cool. And one thing that happened to me recently, so then moving to California with some other member of the team, we had the chance to work more closely with Apple. And I was able to easily drag and drop through AirDrop the model in Vision Pro and could see it in the front of my house. And I have to say, like, working at Dassault, working at with tools for so many years, it's been something that was very delighting for me, that only one person on my own I can do it, while back in the day you had like 5 or 10 people working on decimation of the model, optimization of the model, etc., to finally see it in front of your eyes. So I have to say, lately, technology is amazingly shortcutting the time between the very first sketch, the very first idea, and how you could experience your final model. So that was it for me, leaving it to Quirin.
Hello everyone, my name is Quirin. I am a passionate 3D artist since I was very young. I studied industrial design here in Munich, and since there always have been working in Munich. My first years were at a service supplier, working for a lot of customers, becoming very versatile and experienced, mainly BMW, but also Mercedes, and also already NIO back in the days, 2015. Then I got the opportunity to join Byton from the very beginning, which was a Chinese EV startup. And this being, of course, super interesting, building a startup from ground up, becoming a bit of a jack of all trades in that time, doing everything you're at least a little bit able to do. So this is my main experience and background, I think. And from there, after Byton unfortunately didn't last, switched to Neo. And now there I'm responsible for the visualization team of the Onvo brand, which is Neo's solution for the mass market, only available in China right now. And yeah, as a visualization artist, I am basically the customer of tools that Pierre's company and Mark's company is providing. I'm an interface position to the CMF teams, working a lot with digital materials all the time, be it for any project we do or directly with or for CMF. So of course I have a lot of experience with digital materials. And I think for the audience, it's important to know that my main experience is at the very early stage of the design process. Of course, there are always touch points into marketing, into production. I think a big word of CMF is in the production phase, being very physical, very tangible. And my main area is the concept phase, the early phase where everything is still digital.
Thank you. And I think that's helpful to remember, right? Because in so many of our conversations throughout these panels, we talk about different studios still have kind of different processes and workflows. Some studios are very integrated in terms of including everyone from CMF and visualization from the very first early stages. And some are still very siloed. So I think the very first thing to understand in a design team, even though it sounds very basic, is what are all the roles and how do you help each other at the end of the day move these projects forward. You talked a little bit, Pierre, about this idea of, this cross-disciplinary idea, maybe the video game industry, people coming into the car industry and people from the car industry going into the video game industry. How is this interdisciplinary thinking sort of aiding, do you think, your jobs?
Yeah, it's I would say that there is different scale of it. There is between industries. And to be fair, I would love the automotive industry to have more people coming from other industry, luxury for CMF design, for instance, real-time technology and video games for visualization. That, I think, is very fruitful to learn from another industry and then bring it in an industry. The other thing that I think is very key is more on the team building aspect. It's like, for instance, a profile like Quirin and someone from your team, Julie, pairing together to deploy and to explore is key. And if you see the different steps being one after the other, then you are losing the whole picture. You need to have the whole team working closely together from day one to explore together, to have some success together, also building the trust. Yeah, I think it was mentioned also in another talk. That's a very important word, is that when you are together in the same adventure, the same journey, because each project is a journey. It's very key to build this relationship between people and between teams.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, right? It's how it just had a panel earlier about diversity and what does that mean, and that's not just are you a man or a woman or what country you come from. It's how are you thinking, and so there's this challenge of you wanting to bring together people with different thinking, but also aligned as a group because at the end of the day, you're all working toward the same goal. But along with that, there's a lot of challenges as well. And Julie, I want to ask you too, as a CMF designer, you're not a dinosaur, maybe say traditional CMF, but what are some challenges and pain points for you right now in this world of digitalization?
Well, first of all, I think that we are not anymore working in silo like we used to work in the past. So definitely now we need to work all together, like mainly like in CMF and interior designer, mostly together. And exterior is still okay, and they are like special people. And but it's also with modeler. We have to be connected and working together. And the CMF need to be from the beginning in the project. Plus, anyway, now I can see that since 5 years since after COVID, actually, all the digitalization go so fast. it's really like a change completely our way to work. Is we are like developing more quicker the direction. We are capable to take also the decision quicker. In contrary, is that the fabric or all this kind of other industry, they take longer to be developed. So we need to be in advance to catch the time that we don't have. But anyway, we need to also from my team, we need to develop before project started. We need to have everything ready because at the end, the point of our CMF is also to do physical product, and now to develop a material takes sometimes longer just to validate all the specification and all those things than the entire project time. So it's we need to be fast and furious somehow.
And so I want to ask Pierre, how does this tie into what Julie needs? Talk me through how these tools.
Oh, that's a super important point. Like how we've been approaching on our end, we've been with Substance tool set. We've always been focusing on digital materials coming from the video games, and with back then mostly stylized, so it doesn't need to exist. So we were starting from a point that were pretty far when you think about it. And even the founder of the company has been doing a PhD that were first to simulate clouds. That was with math. That was the very starting point. So from there, you could think that we are coming from very far. But also, when you think, you mentioned the modelers. The modelers, they are not like selecting out of a book like forms of like headlights and profile of the car. They model it through Blender, through Alias. And for CMF design, we felt like you were missing a tool to conceptualize it first and drive the exchange with the suppliers. And so that's why we created a tool called a Substance Sampler. And the idea was really to have this digital extension. You talked about digital twin and also how you can go back and forth. And on the fourth aspect of the thing, we've been working very closely with 3D printing companies. And more recently, we've been working with more embroidery specialists like Tajima, for instance, who are doing those knitting machines and were able to have a side-by-side how it will look like virtually and then manufacture. And this is really cool on the aspect that then you have an Illustrator file of logos. You drag and drop and you can see 10 or hundreds of embroideries, while back in the day you had to ship it back to what you were mentioning, and it takes forever, and then it's obviously not the right one, and then you start this loop of iteration that nobody really enjoy.
And Mark, other than making things faster, I want to hear your perspective on how this has shifted.
I mean, I just wanted to react, I mean, also on you, we have to be faster. So when I started 20 years ago, the development time for car paint took 3 to 5 years minimum. Yeah, so from a development step into all the testings, that it's finally onto the market, that was a long time. Now cars are developed in 2.5 years. So we have to be much faster in the whole process. So what we provide is digital files and physical samples to make your decision possibilities quicker as well, so that we have something that you can map on, you can make decisions, that you can make importers quickly without doing them physically. Yeah, so that's also a possibility of creating a material that knows how you make a material, but it's maybe only digital at the beginning. And then we can translate it into a physical sample with the same properties. And I think this is the difficult part. We're still working on that. Yeah? And that's not completely working because it's an extreme complex material. Even if you think paint is maybe very thin and very easy, it's not. It contains a lot of material, visibility, physics. So we have color scientists working on it. So it's a lot of big team, that make it possible to create something digitally to have it later on physically. So right now we do it the other way around. We do it physically, scan it, provide it digitally to you. Yeah. But the idea is also to change this whole process.
And that's a challenge too, and obviously, like we talked about, CMF in general is made for humans, right? The touch, the hand feel, and having the technology be able to get to the level where it can be identical in digital and to the eye is a big challenge. But I want to go to you, Quirin. I haven't been ignoring you, but tell us a little bit about like your challenges. Like what do you need, Julie and Pierre, to know about your job and what you need to make it happen?
Yeah, I think this is exactly the right point for this question, right? Because the processes you guys are talking about are still in development, and for us, it's a very big challenge to implement it, because Julie was also mentioning trust. I think traditionally it has been much easier to trust a sample and to trust a physical process than to trust development on the computer and to just see it very late in the process. It also introduces risk, of course, if you're trying to do things faster, if you're trying to do things on PC. So for us, I think CMF work the last 15 years, at least from speaking from my experience, have not always been just matching exactly the material and presenting it digitally, but more like a backup plan coming alongside with all the physical samples that are there in the presentations anyway. So my work for CMF has mainly been very redundant. So there are all the samples, there are all the mood boards and everything, and then we're just there to basically summarize the lineup, right? So we do posters and images of all the available colors, of all the available color combinations. We also usually produce a real-time file or VR file. But the quality so far in the recent years has not been, I wouldn't say high enough, but let's say reliable enough that this would be the main source where people go to. It was more the backup showing an overview what is going to be developed, experience in VR, and then it was mainly about assignment, right? Which material goes where in the car, especially for interior. The assignment patterns are super complicated, changing a lot. So I think the biggest part of my team's CMF work was not about matching materials, which was a part of it, of course, but more about assigning it on the areas in the car. And that, of course, is a bit of a shame, because we as 3D artists, we want to produce photorealism, we want to produce something reliable and be more in the driver's seat, actually. And then this is, of course, a big part of my challenge. And then coming back to the question, apart from that, it's flexibility and also coping with all the different speeds that are coming to us, because we have to do the same task so many times in such a short development task, dealing with repetition and changes the whole time. Yeah.
At Konzepthaus, we believe knowledge should be shared. That's why we created House of Learning. With House of Learning, we offer tailored courses in both design craft and design leadership. Whether it's helping designers sharpen their skills or master new tools, or supporting leaders and guiding their teams with efficiency, innovation, and a culture where creativity can thrive, we're here to get your studio future ready. Visit konzepthaus-consulting.com to explore the broad range of our learning courses.
And I think some of the challenges that we had in our pre-discussion call really revolve around standardization, right? Because there's not, like Quirin, you mentioned, like a certain standard for certain things. And Julie, I think you mentioned in your job you have a database, or the files are kept in like this in-house system. And so how much do the processes in the organization can either help you or challenge you within the studio? I'd open it to any of you. Yeah.
Well, it's true that we have like a kind of library of material already planned, and especially the one that I would like to be sure we will use, because mainly now, like I speak mainly about interior, like interior guys are like interior designer are also like nowadays also a source of inspiration, or they pushing some material that at the end I need to make sure that if they make already presentation in advance, I can make it, so I will be able to do it. So that's why I give them like some material that I feed them with something that they have to do, but with the flexibility that we can still change the color and whatever and so on, which we can do it at the end. I think I forget the question. But
just talking about processes and also, I mean, maybe building on that, support from management and leadership as well, just in terms of understanding what would make it easier for your teams to interface together.
Yeah, I think it's very important, the internal processes and the awareness from management, because my experience have been mostly for small companies or for startups with smaller budgets. So big solutions like BASF and material scanners that usually cost or previously cost 100,000 euros or 50,000 euros were not available to me most of the time. So that's of course important that management is understanding the importance of it. And also I think in-house tools so far is the only source for managing the process, because there is no external solution for this very specialized, let's say, physical material visualization, CMF workflow or process.
So I think we came up with a business idea today, right, for somebody who's listening to build a software.
Adobe maybe.
But I think what you mentioned is also, you talked as well, like the single source of truth was actually the first starting point when we worked with one customer on like digitizing material. That was the main target, to say like, how can we create something that is true throughout the whole process? And that is actually then stored somehow in a library, in a data library that everybody can access. Because we learned that, even for exterior paint, there's around 60 different files in the companies for the same material. And it's always different, because it's always differently saved. Somebody tweaked it, somebody made some iterations to it,
different
so it never
software.
works. Yeah. And what we did is like say, don't change it. It's true, the file that we deliver to you in all kinds of scenes and settings that you take. So you change it around, say like there's one original that you always go back to, and then you can do whatever you want. Do California lighting if you need. Doesn't matter, the material will react on this situation.
But this so far previously has been, I think, the biggest part of the challenge, that first of all, I think the trust wasn't there in companies. At least I experienced it from my CMF colleagues, that I was pushing this a lot of times in the past to I think it was even with BASF back then for Byton, we got our whole set of car paint scanned from them, got the AXF materials back, and I was very proud to have this set of assets, which to me were very valuable. And then we ended up hardly using it anymore, because first of all, we had to tweak it for every output, for every screen, for every software that we've been using, for every different use case, every different presentation. We didn't use it as it came, so we started altering it, of course, creating more of these duplicates you're speaking of, and then even replicating the AXF material with traditional material networks to be more flexible in the end afterwards, which of course is going in the completely wrong direction. So yeah, I think it's very hard to get there, what you're proposing.
Maybe here, like we have also as a software company like a responsibility about that, and especially how we can think about an ecosystem instead of like my solution is better than yours, so my materials can't be read in somebody else. I'm taking somebody else's role here, because on our end, especially Adobe being the place of PDF, like we want documents to be ready to be read by anyone, and it's also something that has been across industry, back to what I was mentioning before. And so lately there is two big initiatives when it comes to standardization. I don't want to get too much into the technical aspect of it, but I would name the two. Like the first one is OpenUSD, USD standing for Universal Scene Description. It's been developed by Pixar and open source since a few years now, with additional members that agreed on the format, one of them being Apple, the other one NVIDIA, and the third one Autodesk, and us and Pixar. And the idea is to have the company who are developing those kind of software agreeing and moving forward together. And the idea is really to support the customers. So that's for the 3D file itself, and I was demoing it to Mark. It's like, I can text you a 3D file and you open it with your iPhone and it just works. It sounds silly, but it's a huge step forward. And the second initiative is around the material itself. And the materials in 3D has been described through PBR, that was standing for Physically Based Rendering, developed by Disney this time. And we just agreed with Autodesk to align on how we describe materials, and then sharing it back through the Open PBR initiative. And since Unreal Engine has been joining it, Houdini has been joining it, and really the idea now is that you have one file, and then you have variations, you have presets, like, and USD, for instance, is perfect for storing that. and then you can share this file, and it's not anymore because you can't read it that you can't use it, and that help all the rest afterwards. When you start a project, everybody knows that they will be able to work together. It sounds silly again, and I think we've been going through that in other topics in the past, but for 3D it's really happening now.
But I think that this also shows it's a very long process. And you have to have a long breath, actually, as a company to do this. Yeah, because I mean, we're doing it since 20 years, and we're still doing it and enhancing it. I think this, the times change and digitization makes everything fast, but the backbone actually is not fast. That takes really a long effort and investment. And meeting each other and then showing stuff, like, oh wow, surprising. Like that's also great to have meetings like this to exchange on what's happening actually and what is possible.
Absolutely. I also wanted to say I'm, as a digital person, of course, very much fan of all these tools, so material scanning and procedural material creation, everything. But it's very hard to change the process, the backbone process, because you only get certain chances to do it, and then this window might be closed within the car program, and then everyone is just wanting to rely on the old process that everyone knows already.
I think recently there is no more process. My way to see is like we need to be always flexible to adjust. Like when you start a project, of course there is some library for me that are already fixed, and then you can create new material by using some magic tools. By the way, thank you, that you can get quickly on a library and everything go faster. So I think for me is the biggest keyword now is be flexible.
So it's a balance, it sounds like, between having some standards for files and being able to find things easily and to be able to share things easily, but not be too rigid so that you're not able to innovate as well, which seems to be, that magic something in all design studios for sure. And you guys brought up an interesting point because, I mean, here we are sitting in person. I mean, yes, we had a Teams meeting before this, but and I want to hear from you, Julie, as the CMF designer, but I still am a firm believer that no matter how digital we get, there is no substitute for being together as people. And I think also at the end of the day, if you think about the products that you're creating products for people, for humans, right? For that interaction. So I want to hear your perspective, Julie. No matter how good these digital tools get, is it ever going to replace just touching a leather or looking at a texture in real life?
I know that some are like thinking to do this, but I don't know. Let's see let's sit in 5 years to see what will happen. But definitely first I come from a company which the first thing is think about the customer. For Toyota, that's customer first. So I think it's very important to. I think I already again forget the question. But anyways, from CMF perspective, I think. I forget the question.
That real life, there will never be a substitute for real life in CMF at the end of the day.
Again, I'm coming from Toyota, so I will say we need to be hybrid, I guess.
Yeah, okay,
so
fair.
We need to be
That's
both.
Fair.
We need to be digital. And nowadays, what I can see is that some of the new soft that we use, the free soft Blender, for example, give us like also something completely new on what we were expecting as a CMF designer. Nowadays, like to be honest, from in the past you were looking for like quality or cool design or whatever. After we were like thinking about like what is the next for sustainability and so on. And nowadays we are thinking about like what is like experience and something different in a car. And like new software like Blender, they can give you like completely different lighting, different spirit, and it give a total different, I will say like haptic, even though on the screen. And that is very interesting. That it give new field and it open the design, I think.
And I think this is the enablement of tools. Like it's not rigid to say this is what you get done. It's like a starting point and an option to develop. And I think like this meeting people and talking with the design teams for us as a material producer is super important because we need to listen and understand. You know, what is your needs? What are you looking for? How do you want to develop it? Where's your goal? That's why we always ask, be open enough to us that we can understand what you're looking for. You know, it's a very secretive industry, but sometimes we need to know much more than the NDA would allow, actually, to be able to deliver. Yeah,
It's
so
communication.
personal talk and communication is extremely important, and it's so much easier to meet in person than via a Teams screen that the automotive people mostly can put on a camera because they're in the studio. So you're looking at a black screen and talking to them. So
Question to you, Mark, actually, because this is an area that I don't have much clue about, like what is happening on the other end. Because if digital is actually trying to at least replace or reduce the need of the physical work in advance, what's happening in companies like BASF on producing those materials that have been digitally developed in design teams?
I mean, it's a combination that people are sitting around here. Like we have color scientists working together, you know, like on like how the transportation of like a sample, a real material goes into the digital world, and a representative of how the colors are transported. So there's a whole back team actually, like of scientists and physics behind to make this transition possible. So, you know, what we need, how does it change, how does it look like? And then we would for sure have much more cooperations with like producers of the tool sets as well to understand how is it transported onto the screens and seen. Yeah, but that's a whole backbone of people behind.
But are you running projects already where you only receive a digital material as an input and from there start the development of the production?
Curiosity, NDA, something is happening, yes.
Because the process I know is usually you experience something on the computer and then you have your own internal color lab. It's usually quite well equipped where you then start experimenting with the real paint, and then this is kind of the master sample you give to big suppliers where they start to develop the actual production color.
That's when it's finished for us, you know, when the color is like finished and the formulations are ready. But when we look into more like, you know, coming from an idea, a process, like this could also be looking into how we can translate digital images that you provide to us like into a paint. Yeah.
Because I think so far this was one of the main reason holding this back, because we didn't replace this process. We were making proposals on screen, but then still the CMF team had to get into the lab with a professional color.
And this is the most question we get: can I tweak it? You know, can I, as a designer, make the decision on changing it? Like, can I change the flake sizes? Can I change the combination? Can I slightly tweak the color? Which is like, yes, you could do it digitally, but what does it mean for formulation? And is that a valid material in the end? So we are working for sure exactly on this border of saying like, hey, how far can you go in tweaking until it becomes a non-workable material? Or the flakes are not existing. Yeah.
Yeah, because the sum of the flakes is just the chemical. You cannot be over than what chemical can do right now, I guess. Because sometimes on the screen we do super cool things, but I still have some hair, but I'm like becoming crazy.
And this also speaks to the broader topic of the collaboration between the manufacturers and the suppliers, right? Because in older days, it was you would get swatches and this is what we have and you want to put it on the car, and maybe there was a little customization, but I think it also highlights, you know, the more intimate, close collaboration between the suppliers and the designers, and who's pushing whom, and also what is possible as well. And then you add in the fact that the supplier wants to have their own proprietary technology and solution, and then the car companies want to have their own special proprietaries so that no one else has it. So I think these are some both challenges and opportunities, I think, in the industry.
And maybe it's not only, you know, the design teams. That's maybe the most challenging part, is like make this material in like the technical feasibility with all the technical teams that qualify and give permission in the end that the material can be used in production. I think that's also, you know, involve those teams as well, especially like in this very reduced time frames that we nowadays have. Like we have to be extremely quick, and you know, after the decision that the design team does, there's a lot of work coming in to make it a viable product.
Mm-hmm. So, Julie, I want to ask your opinion, having been through a journey in your career, seeing CMF change, for the CMF designers and aspiring CMF designers in the audience. Like, what skill sets do you think are the most important, or how have they evolved, and what does that mean for the future of CMF designers? Do you need to be thinking differently? And what do you still need to keep from kind of this old school thinking? What is you see the future of the CMF designer?
I think that we always have to move forward anyway, and we need to be flexible on many stages of our way to work. Anyway, I think that, as I mentioned just before, like in the past, it was just making a cool color. After it's making like a sustainable thing. Now we are working about experimentation inside the car and so on. So we need to continue to be curious, and also in terms of digital, I think we need to continue to skills ourselves, because especially like new generation will come with one soft, and then you have older generation with another soft, and you can create like some tension on a group if nobody has the same skills. So I think that's also is like thinking to continue to form ourselves, and to for me it's the big word is be curious, be flexible, and think advance. Because as we need to go faster, we need to think in advance all the material and develop it with you guys, and communicate well with your colleagues, especially the digital, which becoming recently our best friend. You know, in the past I never talked so much. Now I'm having coffee every day with them. So.
It's interdisciplinary communication. That's good. But you bring up training, and I think it's also a big thing that we talk a lot about in these conferences, and that is the education process, because different schools and different programs have different approaches. And I guess from all of you, seeing new people come in, seeing students, seeing interns, what would you say needs to either change, or that you see as the most kind of successful formula for being educated to work in this environment?
On our end, next generation of creative is key. So that's why, like, recently we did a project with the Art Center in Rivian about CMF design and how they can use our tools to propose new variations and new exploration with our tools. And what was interesting to see is that the students first were like not convinced, let's put it this way, at the beginning of the project, and then the more we get into it, the more they were passionate, and now many of them are interns. I have in mind one is at SEAT in Barcelona, the other one in Detroit at GM, and they are bringing those new approach, those new way of doing things. And obviously it sparkled something at the studio. The interesting thing that I think Julie's point was very true is like how it could also bring tension. On our end, for instance, we made the effort to make all of our materials available for Photoshop. So if you are still doing a 2D sketch, but you want to apply materials, you can, and you can change the lighting because it's kind of 2D and a half. And what is interesting that in many places we're talking about those PBR materials being the new color, because it's providing more information about what you are looking for. So it's definitely at the heart of the thing is to engage with this new generation of designers and having them also building the trust with the tools, because if they are using it during their studies and they've been delivering projects, and those projects make them graduate, then they trust the tool to provide the right level of quality afterwards.
I think it's important also that the tools become easier to use, because I think from a mindset, CMF designers are very different than, for example, visualization artists, which is very, very good. And I think it's not the point of aligning towards each other, but keeping everyone's different strengths and also weaknesses, and work together as a team. So far, I haven't witnessed someone within CMF developing all the skills necessary to do all the work that we are doing, and I also don't think it's necessary. And on the other hand, the digital tools that we use are sometimes very hard to get into, have a very high learning curve, very steep. Substance Designer is an amazing tool, but it's not the easiest tool to learn. You open it, you're completely overwhelmed beginning, usually with every node-based tool once you're not used to it. So I think it's maybe not a question about education, but more a question of the tools becoming more democratized within the companies.
Yeah.
Maybe have different versions for different teams to still collaborate on the same formats and to have the same sources, but with a different approach on how you tackle things in software.
So yeah, I just need to bounce back on this one, because when I joined Algorithmic and Substance tools about 10 years ago, we had Substance Designer that is indeed fascinating. So it's node-based, so we call it like the nodal graph, because it could be a nodal soup fairly quickly. It's super powerful, but also daunting. And so we've been developing Substance Alchemist that became simpler more recently to really simplify and to optimize for CMF design, and having also taking inspiration from other software that were valuable, and some of them being Illustrator and Photoshop. And we wanted people to be able to layer materials and combine materials that they will do in Illustrator with layer stack. And since we've been seeing people that would never start Substance Designer start to engage and develop their own materials. So I agree 200% with you. It's like it's all about the UI, the UX, and fun fact also, some of them after 2 years or 3 years start to get into more advanced tools, and we start to see some of the students that started with the most simplest tool becoming super expert in Unreal Engine and things that are for some of them being the most complex tools. So there is also a trajectory here, and back to the cross-industry aspect, there is some people that have been learning game design that ended up going to automotive industry and are super happy with it. And they bring this special skill set. And if you combine them with like super talented CMF designers, even during the studies, they can deliver super cool project together. So it's also very complementary. You won't turn like a CMF designer into a high-end visualization artist, and the other way around. But if you make them grow together, that could be super powerful.
But I would also like to take, into account it's all about materials. So, and I think what is, there is in the market like extremely skilled CMF designers that know their materials. And some young designers are changing quite a lot. And this knowledge about a material, about the behavior, how it's made, what you can extend, this is something that needs to be fostered. And there's a kind of, this quick transition, to this, change. And then becoming an expert is really hard. You might be an expert on like visualizing it, but you're not an expert what the material does. I think this could be something that could be fostered more, like the knowledge on that and the interest on understanding, and the materials are extremely different, how they can be done. So that's, I think, should be integrated.
Actually, I think speaking a little bit about Substance, which is a fantastic tool, but not for designer, for my age at least. But we got some help from digital tools, and that's go very fast. But the library, we can't pick and drop and so on, and that goes super, super good. And it's true that if you have like a young designer, they will they are native with this kind of technology, and they can develop it and go very fast, do beautiful rendering and so on. But nowadays, if you look at a profile, I will rather take a young designer that has like as a study, like learn how to develop a fabric, how to develop a paint and so on, because we know that they'll already be easy adapters about new technology, and they will be able to prepare the rendering and explain how it works, and it's fantastic, especially all the software is magic, and if you have a good digital tool, you discuss them properly, it go fast. But I think, yeah, definitely we need to have also like the feet on the earth, and knowing that new generation need to know how to develop a material on top of.
We even experience ourselves. So we've been hiring several CMF designers in our team, and the person that is leading our 3D asset library is a former CMF designer, more on the product design side. And we also hired a student from Duperret to join the team and to expand it. And even more recently, we've been working with Peclers or more like forecast, or for instance, Chris Leftery, on some materials that could be like a little bit at the forefront, but to experiment. But back to what you are mentioning, and we did not even mention it, I'm surprised. We did not talk about AI yet. Sorry.
Because that would be a whole other panel, and we don't have time
Too late.
today.
but one thing that I'm super convinced about is like this kind of expertise, like at the core, what defines you, and a CMF designer is knowing what materials is about and how to leverage the materials and how you combine them, is your core knowledge and your core value to the rest of the team, and that will always be the driver what you are bringing to a team.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line of this entire discussion is, at the end of the day, the tools are just supposed to make your job easier. It's not supposed to be about learning the tools or the files or what format they're in or how to share them, right? As all that gets better, then it just helps you focus on being either a better paint producer or a better CMF designer, a better visualization artist. And so I think these discussions are important to talk about. What are your pain points? What do you need? What do you need the other person to know about you? And so I really appreciate this discussion. And we do have a few minutes left. So if we have any questions from the audience, we're happy to